Good morning to you, friends. This to provide clarification on the nature of ADA, that is whether ADA is permanent or temporary, as this issue is being debated more frequently in our ADA and Areva platforms. See, why was ADA created as an autonomous body is the first question requiring an answer. The requirements of the LCA program and the other objectives of ADA pose high degree of challenges in the areas of technology and management both. Execution of the program demands enough autonomy in the areas of recruitment, procurement, funding, imports, etc., etc. And no single agency or the department that existed could handle these tasks independently. And therefore, on 16th June 1984, ADA was created as an autonomous body, registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860 as a society. So now, let us have an idea about the creation, structure and operation of the autonomous bodies in central government. Then we shall address the main issues. See, an autonomous body is an institution of the government which forms part of the public service. It is a self-governing entity. It has its own governing committee or governing body and the Memorandum of Association MOA to take care of the day-to-day activities. And their funding can be 50% to 200% by Government of India as per the MOA. And as autonomous bodies are funded by the government, all major activities are subject to the overall scrutiny and approval of the government. The ministry officials are also nominated in the specialized committees, in the major committees of the autonomous bodies. And the autonomy is to avoid the daily interference of the governmental machinery in order to accomplish the important goals which cannot be carried out within the regular departmental structure. The clearance of the Ministry of Finance is required in respect of the grants and the major policy matters having financial implications. And they are typically registered as societies under Societies Registration Act 1860 or the Indian Trusts Act 1882 or other acts. Autonomous bodies, they have a liability to the government as taxpayers' money is involved in the grants and aid. And the grants and aid, it is therefore a liability and it is shown as a liability in the accounts of the autonomous bodies and not shown as the income. The ministry is authorized to create a corpus fund for an autonomous body with the concurrence of the Ministry of Finance if the corpus is created out of the budgetary allocation. And it can be done with the approval of the administrative ministry itself if it is from the internal accruals. Say an organization whose performance is found to be outstanding and internationally acclaimed, it should be granted greater autonomy in matters of recruitment, staff structures, and the financial rules and procedures to improve the productivity. So this is true in respect of organizations like ADA. The budgetary estimates should be submitted with supporting details by the end of September of the preceding year. And in the case of recurring grants, the unutilized balances should be considered against the next year's requirements. The cash balance at a time should preferably not more than 3 months requirements. All the assets acquired out of government grants by the autonomous bodies shall form the property of the government. See, the final accounts should be prepared in the standard formats prescribed by the Ministry of Finance. The accounts of the autonomous bodies shall be audited by the C&AG of India under Section 14 of the CAG's DPC Act 1971 as amended from time to time. Approved and authenticated annual accounts should be ready by 30th June. The audit should be completed by 31st October. The annual reports and the audited account should be submitted to the nodal ministry so that it can be laid on the tables of the Parliament. And the deadline for submitting these annual accounts, it is 31st December. So all organizations which receive more than 50% of their recurring expenditure in the form of grants and aid, it should ordinarily formulate the service conditions of their employees, including the terminal benefits, in such a way that by and large the benefits are not higher than, more than those applicable to similar categories in the central government. And in exceptional cases, the relaxation may also be made in consultation with the Ministry of Finance. Now, let us come to our subject, whether ADA is permanent or temporary. See, permanent organization in stricter terms means an organization which continues for an infinite period. Similarly, permanent employee is an employee who continues in an organization for an infinite period. But both these possibilities are beyond our imagination, and it is an impossibility. Therefore, government has formulated some simple formulae, simple definitions according to their convenience to clarify these autonomous bodies as permanent and temporary. See, we should only examine whether these conditions are fulfilled and decide about the nature of the organization and also about the nature of the appointment of an employee in an organization. And I really don't know why many people are still under the impression that TADOI is a temporary organization when it is going strong even after 40 years of its formation. And for that matter, if TADOI is a temporary organization, this must be true for all other departments also, because no organization, no department in government is declared as a permanent organization. If required, you can refer to the formation orders of the so-called departments. Government can declare any organization as permanent at best by saying that they are created until further orders, because no particular government is permanent by itself. Governments keep changing, and the governments also keep changing their policies. So it is only the question of deemed permanency or say temporary. So if an organization is created with a definite tenure, that is clearly indicating that it is created on such and such a date, and it will continue up to say a particular period, a particular date, then only it becomes a temporary organization, or otherwise it is considered permanent for all purposes. There is no such a temporary time tag in the creation orders of ADA to say that it is a temporary organization. Similarly, an organization created with immediate effect and until further orders, it also indicates that the organization needs a permanent organization. So same argument holds good in respect of individual employees also. See, people appointed on contract, people appointed against the ad hoc vacancies, they are all considered as temporary employees, while people appointed against the regular vacancies of the organization, carrying time scales of pay, appointed on probation, they are considered permanent on successful completion of the probation. Although No appointment order says that an individual is appointed on permanent basis, because even the so-called permanent appointment is followed by a retirement. The prescribed age factor for entry and exit also counts here to classify them as permanent or temporary. For certain other entitlements like say the CCS pension, continuous qualifying service of more than 10 years in a regular post, it is considered as permanent. See friends, the projects sanctioned to ADA, they have definite PDCs, but no such time restriction for the organization itself. The design and development of LCA, it was one of the main tasks entrusted to ADA immediately after its formation under its broad approved objectives, namely to undertake, aid, guide, promote, implement and execute the research and development in aeronautical science. To work on LCA program, it is not the only objective of ADA, although many senior technocrats, bureaucrats and administrators sometimes wrongly quote this in their notice. See, temporary organizations, they cannot create, they cannot operate the timescales of pay in their recruitments. They have to carry on the work with contract appointments only. And only permanent, that is deemed permanent organizations, they are entitled to operate the regular timescales. And we in ADA, the pre-2004 employees of ADA were all appointed against the regular vacancies falling within the approved caterer strength of the organization. So all government pay revisions, that is revision of pay scales, etc., were all approved by the governing body to its ADA, to its employees, to the ADA employees. So ADA has been created by the government with the approval of the cabinet without any time restriction in the creation orders. ADA executes the sovereign functions of the government. ADA is fully funded by government, and all this is more than sufficient to say that it is a permanent organization. But certainly, as per provisions of the approved financial regulations, the autonomous bodies have to report the creation of permanent posts to the finance ministry through the governing body and get their caterer strength regularized from time to time. As a rule, the ministry shall also has to put in place a system of external or peer review of autonomous organizations every 3 to 5 years, depending on the size and nature of the activity. So with this, the administrative department has to, number one, ensure that the objectives are being achieved. 2, they have to decide whether the activity should be continued at all. 3, if similar functions are also being undertaken by other organizations, whether there is scope for merging or winding up the organizations under review. And they have to also find out if there is a scope for maximizing the internal resources and reduce the budgetary support of the government. So the responsibility, transparency and accountability factors are also considered in this review. But this does not really mean an autonomous body is temporary in nature. This happens in the case of departments also, but in different forms. This is also true in the case of permanent employees. See, the performance of an individual, the so-called permanent employee, it is also evaluated every year through ACRs, the annual confidential reports, annual performance reports. So this does not change his or her permanent status. ADA is a permanent legal entity and nobody should misquote. If in some context somebody has said that it is temporary, to save his skin, her skin, it is a serious mistake. Merger of ADA with DRDO or merger of DRDO with the ADA, it does not in any way change the legal status of the pre-2004 employees as far as their pension entitlement is concerned. The government has an authority either to continue or wind up or merge an organization with others. So this is equally true for a department also. So none of these factors affect the permanency of the organization unless it is clearly indicated in the orders creating the organization. And this issue has never been the problem of the government for not sanctioning the pension to ADA. And it is crystal clear today. It is crystal clear as to why we are denied of the pension. The decision to implement the CPF scheme, it was an unilateral decision of our management. The employees' voices were not heard, options not collected, and finally when the management raised up the demand with the government, it was too late. The doors were permanently closed for the CCS pension. So not having our own regular Director General, the CEO of the organization for so many decades, and filling some key posts at the senior levels with outsiders taken on deputation. So this really killed our independence, this really killed our autonomy. We were always at the discretion or the mercy of our DRDO bureaucrats in Delhi, and no autonomous body presently enjoying the CCS pension. It is structurally or legally better placed than ADA. Friends, the core committee of AEC has been informed by ADA management recently that sincere and continuous efforts in this regard for implementing the pension, they are going on at the highest level. So let us give our DG, the Director General, who is currently the regular employee of ADA, some time to settle down, sort out the issues and complete the task, and let us be hopeful. So thank you friends, thank you very much.